the bucket list. Vision and hope in 365. In the movie, The Bucket List, how many of you have seen it? Jack Nicklaus and Morgan Freeman, correct? Are two elderly gentlemen who find themselves very sick, and they both receive word that maybe all they have is 6 months left. 1 year if they are very fortunate. They meet at the hospital, they are both ill, and so they explore, well, what might the bucket list be? The things they would like to do before they kick the bucket. They made a list. On that list was powering a Shelby Mustang around the racetrack. Check that. They wanted to discover the joy in their lives before it was too late. Check that. They also wanted to go skydiving. Check that as well. So I thought, well, what might be on my bucket list? Well, I did a little thinking and I thought, Google bucket list and see who is doing what. So I Googled bucket lists. One of the most popular ideas out there as far as bucket lists go is to donate hair to Locks of Love. I took a look in the mirror and I thought to myself, that will not work for me. It was also on there to swim with turtles. Swim with sea turtles. I said, that one I have done. Sabbatical break 2013, Hawaii. Check that one. Also on that list, I think, was volunteer abroad. Hey, volunteer abroad. Put me down for that. I'm living that one out. What's on your bucket list? What are the things that you would like to do before you kick the bucket? Because truth be told, at some point, right? Every one of us kicks the bucket. Before we talk about the mission or the vision of the church, I want us to visit for a moment what Jesus determined was the mission for his church. What did Jesus say the church, which is his body, was supposed to be about? What did Jesus say? 5 times in the Gospels and in the Acts of the Apostles, as we read today, in no uncertain terms, Jesus says, I came to seek and to save the lost. I came to set the captives free. I came to proclaim release. I came to bring the good news. And therefore, the church is commissioned, yea, commanded to follow in the footsteps of Jesus. The task of the church of Jesus Christ anywhere, whatever else it does, Jesus said so clearly, go out and spread the good news. Teach them what I have taught you. Baptize them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. And he said, I am with you to the very end of the present age. I am with you. If you look at our mission statement as a church, our mission statement is to love God, know Christ, care for one another, and joyfully share the good news of Jesus Christ. Notice that everything about that mission statement points to that final statement, that final phrase. Sure, we love God in worship and in giving and in service. We know Christ through studies, personal prayer, community worship. We know Christ. We care for one another. Of course, it is the right thing to do to care for one another. Look in on one another. Be in studies together. Trust one another. Bear one another's burdens. But all of that leads to the final phrase, which is to joyfully share the good news of Jesus Christ. Everything leads to that joyful sharing of the good news of Jesus Christ, so that others who have not heard can find out about God's love for them in Jesus Christ as well. Now, why is that so important? Why is the Church of Jesus Christ not allowed just to do anything it pleases and completely become inward focused and just think about its preferences and its desires and the things that make me happy? Why is it not the good thing to do? Because the only way the love of God presses out into the world is through the people who have come to believe. That's how Jesus set it up. Through you, my disciples, others will find out about my love. So when the church drops the ball there of finding some way to effectively press out that good news, it ceases, quite frankly, to be the church of Jesus Christ. So the mission of Jesus and his church is to press out the good news of God's love. That's it. Put it in a different way, we exist to connect other people with God so that they can connect other people with God. That's why we exist as a church. We exist to connect people with God so that they in turn can connect other people with God, so that the process can continue. Because you see, the love of God means absolutely zero unless it translates into loving one another, loving people. The love of God doesn't mean anything unless it translates into practically caring for one another, loving people, being concerned, being kind, all of that being an expression of the idea that I love God. So when that catches on and more people have this love of God in their hearts, then we have more people caring for one another, more people showing kindness, more people living with justice, more people caring for their neighbor. That is the reign of Jesus Christ, which we become part of right here and now, not just something we wait for when we get to heaven. We're going to sing our final song in a little bit, which talks about the reign of Jesus Christ. That's why those who believe are charged, one way or the other, to make disciples. This past week, my family gathered at the dining table. It was a little bit after 6:30, and most mornings, school day mornings, we gather at the dining table and have a devotion. Brief devotion, have a prayer, and the kids get on the bus and they go to school. This past Wednesday, we were reading out of the devotional that all of us are encouraged to use for our extravagant giving series. And we had read it, we talked about it, and as we discussed it, Anna shared something that struck me. She said, a few years ago, she said, I went mountain bike riding with Rebecca Lamshek. How many of us know Rebecca Lamshek? Yes. She said they went mountain bike riding north on 23rd Street up there, north of town, and they made their way up up a small hill. I'm saying small because I'm standing here. Anna did not think it was a particularly small hill, but there she was, perched atop her bike on top of that hill. She said she looked at Rebecca Lumshek, who is an experienced and wise mountain biker, and said, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I'm up for going downhill on this path. And she said, Rebecca Lumshek looked at her and said, you can do it. She said, there is a secret to mountain biking. Has anybody ever told you? She said, no. No. She said, here is a secret to mountain biking. Where you look is where you will probably end up. Write that down somewhere. Where you look as you perch on top of that bike on that hill, where you look is where you will probably end up. And I thought about that. Because where you look is where your focus is. Your shoulders will tend to lean into that. Your entire body will sway and be guided by that focus. Where you look is where you probably end up. Imagine with me sitting atop the mountain bike, ready to go down and looking backwards. Do we have to imagine very hard? No. Shoulder is turned, torso is headed this way. It's not going to be pretty. Sitting on top of the mountain bike and looking down at the front wheel, you can't see where you're going. You're just looking down. It's not going to be pretty. Where you look is where you probably end up. So let me share with you where I would like for us as a church to look. That's what I'm calling my bucket list. The vision. The mission is to make disciples. That's a big picture. The vision is where we are turning our attention, what we are focused on for 2018. That's the vision. I don't know what yours is. You received cards in the mail to be thinking about your hopes and your dreams. Here is mine. It's a two-part statement. I'm going to tell it to you, and we'll talk about it. My vision for our church for 2018 is one united church with two thriving services. Two parts. One united church with two thriving services. The world would be such a different place if we found ways to talk with and to one another rather than about one another. A united church, a church that is one in purpose, one in mind. A single-focused church. Not two congregations under the same roof. That's not a united church. Some of you remember the days of two congregations under the same roof. Who wants to go back there? I have read the minutes, something about the merger and how it played out. It was not a happy time. My vision is one united church under the same roof. We have in our church here something called the PCRC, the Personnel Congregation Relationship Committee. Rob, would you stand, please? Cindy, would you stand, please? Darlene, would you stand, please? Darlene, there you go. Who else is part of your team? Look around. Just keep standing. I want you to look around. Who? Santos. Sorry. Santos, you are a newbie. Sorry. Look around. These people are charged to help us listen to one another when things get difficult, to help us talk to and with one another rather than about one another behind our backs. That's their task. And when that opportunity comes up, when that difficulty comes up, I encourage you, if you can't do one-on-one, reach out to one of them. Please be seated. Thank you. One united church. One united church. Not a divided church. One united church. I'm going to pick on you two ladies for just a moment, because you have exemplified something that needs to be lifted up. Debbie Walker, Elmer Hurt. You haven't done anything bad. Don't worry. These two ladies, along with Trudy Sims. Where are you, Trudy? I don't know who else was part of the gang. Got together and decided they were going to sew the curtains for the second worship service. It took a lot of measuring and cutting and sewing. I encourage you to stop by and look at the curtains. Beautiful. Now, if you talk to Alma, she'll be the first to tell you, I'm a traditionalist. I see myself based right here in this chair, in this pew. But you see the mindset? She's not thinking us and them. See? See the mindset? I'll do what I can to help it succeed because we are one united church. Not us and them. That's a divided house. It took hours to get it done. And it's hanging up there. One united church, focused on this idea of making disciples. Are there going to be some hurts? Yeah, there are going to be some hurts, but we've got people to help us to work through them. So that's the first part of my vision, where to point the front tire of the mountain bike, so to speak. One united church. The second part of my vision, my friends, is two thriving services. And that means, I've done some studies and praying and scratching my head on this subject. There are a lot of things that we need to do, but you know what? It turns out that if our focus is the unchurched, those people that have not yet heard the love of God, if that's our focus, to make disciples, if that's our focus, it turns out there is a test we can run right here in both services. Here it is. What do the teenagers think? What do the teenagers think of what is happening in the traditional service? What do the teenagers think of what is happening in the contemporary service? It turns out if the teens are in it, the unchurched will be in it. Because it means that there's a very simple bridge to cross. You don't have to interpret and reinterpret a lot of things because they get it. It can happen in both traditions. You can have a traditional service that speaks to teens. You can have a contemporary service that speaks to teens. If the teens are responding and their input is being taken seriously and they have a voice there. People that are unchurched will also likely be able to connect. 2, thriving worship services. It means that maybe sometimes some of us will come to the first service and serve in the second service. Not every Sunday, of course, maybe once a month. Maybe you come to the second service and serve in the first service. Because the thing about 2 services is that all of a sudden a lot more has to be done. You need more greeters. You need musicians. You need people to build PowerPoints. Somebody needs to pick up the fellowship food for after church. Everything has to be doubled all of a sudden. And it's an opportunity for all of us to serve. Why? Because we've got our eyes on the people we are trying to reach for God, with the love of God. That's our focus. That's our focus. Somebody in a church somewhere was lamenting. And I would never say this, Blake, but I'm going to say it in somebody else's name. And the pastor said, "You're saved, aren't you?" "Yes, you are." "You are as saved as Billy Graham." Let's think of those who are not. Let's think of those who are not. Let's move our attention. So as it were, friends, we find ourselves perched atop a mountain bike. We have a decision to make. What's your vision? Where do you want to focus over the next year? I'm inviting you to focus on one united church, 2 thriving services. Is that something you can get behind? Is that something you can support? And somebody said, "Well, I don't have any problem with that." That was another question. Not having any problem with it is not the same as I will support. It's not the same as I will encourage, I will work, those are 2 different situations. Is there something you can rally around? One united church. 2 thriving services. Where do you want to point this bike? We are on top of that hill today.